Just like emotions like anger can be salty or spicy, sweet can be like or enjoy, soft and mild could be mellow. You're kind of getting the idea, right? Like we can take what we would taste on a physical palate and turn it into an emotional palate. And what does that do? It makes it relational. You are able to visualize and relate so that when you taste something that tastes really delicious, now you're noticing the feeling in your body. And then we move on and we take that another step. You feel in situations. How does it feel in your body? What were you consuming emotionally as far as ingredients? And that's where I'm trying to take people. I'm also trying to help people to not get into emotional ruts, so to speak. Fall in love with everything. I hate everything. To try and delineate that into different emotions that have different degrees of intensity. This is Flavors of Emotions, expanding your emotional palate for a tastier life. My name is Kim Cordy. Together, we explore how to make sense of our feelings through the lens of a chef, understanding flavors and a recipe. I am here to help you refine your emotional palate to differentiate the emotions that shape your world. Hello, and welcome to Flavors of Emotions. If it's your first time listening, I'm so glad you joined. And if this is not, thank you for coming back. And as always, I really want you to understand that I appreciate the minutes that you spend listening to what I have to say. I am so passionate about my message and trying to help people. And if you get any value out of what I say, I'm really, really happy. Really, at the bottom of my heart, happy. Today, we are talking about how emotions are like a recipe, which also happens to be the title of chapter 4 of my book, Yucky, Yummy, Savory, Sweet, Understanding the Flavors of Emotions. And we're going to start it out with a quote from one of my favorite people. I have so many favorite peoples because I like to spread the love around. But Erwin Schrödinger is a Nobel-winning physicist. He also did some really important work substantiating quantum physics. So if you're into quantum physics, you know exactly who this is. Or if you watch Big Bang Theory, because Sheldon refers to him. Anyway, he said, "The world is a construct of our sensations, perceptions, and memories. It is convenient to regard it as existing objectively on its own, but it certainly does not become manifest by its mere existence." I'm going to say it one more time. The world is a construct of our sensations, perceptions, and memories. It is convenient to regard it as existing objectively on its own, but it certainly does not become manifest by its mere existence. He's talking about the world. And this is where I am sure, I can't say for sure, but I feel quite strongly that my emotion idol, Lisa Feldman Barrett, who wrote How Emotions Are Made, The Secret Life of the Brain, and who authored The Theory of Constructed Emotions, I'm sure she got it from him, or at least some of it from him. I'm going to repeat this for those of you who are like, oh yeah, Kim, we've heard this. But we construct our world in our head. Our perceptions, our memories, just like Dr. Schrödinger said, are what we use to construct everything. The perceptions are ingredients that I talked about last week in chapter 3 of my book. It's incredible to me because it doesn't feel that way. Does it feel that way for you? It doesn't feel that way for me. And yet, that's what the science tells us. So, Dr. Schrödinger, Dr. Feldman Barrett, I guess I should just call her Dr. Barrett, when they tell us this information, I feel like, and I did feel like, I needed to listen quite closely. Now, when I was researching my book, I thought construct, like we have this world that's inside of us. There's this whole theory about um, we have a model of the world that sits inside of our brains that's been constructed by all of our experiences. And I thought, okay, what is that like? That's like a building, an architect. In this website called Build, I found this article about how architects will make a model of whatever their client wants designed, and they'll put it together so that you get this visual, right? You get to see it, and you might see where your idea didn't work, or maybe, you need to expand it, make it more fancy, make it less fancy. It's that visual that you get to understand if you wanna make any changes or approve it and say, "Yay, let's build this." And we don't get that, but we get a sense of our internal model of the world by how we feel. We understand what it was constructed with. What emotion was it constructed with? And what was used? What were the building materials? What were the sensory perception ingredients that helped build this model of the world that exists inside of our body? I went to Barcelona, Spain. And if you've never been, it's quite a lovely city. And in it, they have this stunning church. It's called La Sagrada Familia. And it was created by Gaudi, uh, just a brilliant, brilliant guy, but he was working on this thing over and over and just kept growing and expanding. And inside of it, you've never seen anything like it. It is honestly one of the most beautiful buildings I've ever been in. And I would say go to the website and take a peek at this building, and you would be impressed, but it's nothing like when you're there. It's just an amazing work of architecture, of art. It's stunning. But the point is that it's still under construction. It's been over 100 years, and Gaudi's been dead, I forget how long. And yet it's still under construction. I don't know if it will ever end. And I'd like to think that we are all this beautiful work of art that is constantly under construction. The thing that I'm trying to encourage people is to be the architect, take more control, more interest, more effort into the design of how your world is perceived by you. We start out life, we're these little tiny blobs of a human, cute blobs, but we don't have much personality. We don't know anything. All we know is we need to sleep, we need to eat, and a few other things. And then we start to get the sensory data in. We start to build our world. Now we get influences. Who's our biggest influence? Our parents. And so they help us build our world and what it is consists of. And we've got these sensory systems that help us to understand edges and things that are soft and things that are rough. And our parents explain to us, this, you feel this soft kitty? And now you know what soft means. And your fingers help to tell you this information. You don't know all the different colors until you get that big Crayola box, the massive one that has, what, 100 colors or how many, 120? Whatever. It's not even all the colors that are out there. But the point is that you can use that crayon and look on the side, and it tells you what it is you're coloring with. So while we look and we learn what that crayon color is, right? We get this Crayola crayon, it says forest green. and I'm looking at forest green, and potentially my sister or a school friend or whomever else is looking at forest green, and we think that we're both seeing this same color, but I don't know for sure that that's what my sister or my friend or whomever is seeing too. And why? Because it's in our heads. And this is so, so, so important because as we respond and react to people and we see other people respond and react to things or to us, they have this whole construction of the world and us in their head that we had no true participation in. And when I say that, we can give them ingredients, but what they do with the ingredients that we give them is up to them. So their experience with us could have been based on their focus or how they were feeling at the time. There's all kinds of factors that play into this. But my point is that how we experience the world and how they experience the world are completely different because they have this model of the world inside of their heads. Because what did Schrödinger say? I'm going to go right back to his quote. It is convenient to regard it as existing objectively on its own, but it certainly does not become manifest by its mere existence. It's a lot to think about. It is a lot to think about. And I really want to help people to understand that flavors of emotions are like understanding all those Crayola crayons, getting that granularity of all of those different colors and that they're all not just green. In my book, and if you listen to my book on my podcast channel in the Flavors of Emotions podcast, I have a dedicated playlist just of my book that I'm recording and posting on that channel or that playlist. And in that chapter that you listen to, or in the book when you read it, there is this circumplex, so to speak, of how we experience flavors of emotions to kind of give you a connection to it. For instance, we might feel starving, or we could be very satisfied. That's a different emotion, right? Between the two. It could be super delicious, or it's so bad you just want to spit it out. It could be spicy or salty, or sweet or savory, or bland or tasteless, or soft or mild, just like emotions like anger can be salty or spicy. Sweet can be like or enjoy. Soft and mild could be mellow. You're kind of getting the idea, right? Like we can take what we would taste on a physical palate and turn it into an emotional palate. And what does that do? It makes it relational. You are able to visualize and relate so that when you taste something that tastes really delicious, now you're noticing the feeling in your body. And then we move on and we take that another step. You feel in situations. How does it feel in your body? What were you consuming emotionally as far as ingredients? And that's where I'm trying to take people. I'm also trying to help people to not get into emotional ruts, so to speak. Fall in love with everything. I hate everything. To try and delineate that into different emotions that have different degrees of intensity, just like delicious or spit it out. Somewhere in the middle, you can find an emotion that is between love and hate. So that's this idea of trying to identify your emotions with more distinction. Empathy is one of those things that you see a lot. If you go on LinkedIn, you see all these people talking about empathy. Perhaps I spend a lot more time on LinkedIn than I do on other social media platforms, but if you look, there's all kinds of focus on empathy, 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 empathy. But empathy can be bad too. I'm not going to say bad. I'm going to take that back. It is not bad. It can have a negative outcome. So I'm going to go back to Emotions are not positive or negative. The outcomes are. So people are like, yes, empathy. And yes, do we need more of it? Probably yes, is the case. We want people to feel more. But there's other ways and other emotions that you can feel given a particular situation. And empathy can have its negative outcomes. There's such a thing as empathy induced altruism. Empathy comes from this German world to a German word. Let me fix that. To feel into something. And so if you feel in too much, guess what? You might overwhelm yourself with emotions because all of a sudden now you're feeling all of these emotions that you think that they're feeling because why? You only have your model of the world in your head, right? Like you only know what you know because you don't know truly how they feel, just like you don't know if they see the same color red or green or whatever. You don't know if they feel the same way that you think that they're feeling. It's your emotional guess. So if you feel in too much, you could overwhelm yourself. It might cause you problems in a work circumstance, especially. And I've seen this numerous times where too much empathy has led to people singling out certain individuals to help them. And that's okay as long as others are not being ignored or wanting to help somebody out. So you promote them and you put them in a position they should not be in. And so others are either failing or struggling or quit because you put someone into a position because you wanted to help them out, but it really wasn't a good fit. Or you overlooked other people who were more qualified and who might have even been in the company longer because of that empathetic induced altruism. Because we like to think empathy always good, but there's other things like compassion. Compassion is more action oriented and it doesn't necessarily lead you down that path of being overly empathetic. But I'm not saying empathy is bad, right? I'm saying that empathy has its place, just like salt or sugar. You don't want to use salt in a situation where you should be using sugar, and you don't want to use sugar where you should be using salt. It's the same idea. You want to capture the flavor that is correct, the emotional flavors needed for that situation and for all involved, which includes yourself. You cannot forget that when you're overly empathetic, it takes a toll on you. This is sometimes part of who we are, right? Highly empathetic. And I refer to this in my book as the secret sauce because there's things that are in our genetic makeup that we inherit. There's things that we learn too. So there's nature versus nurture. And I don't think you can untangle the two because we are a product of all of our experiences and our genetic makeup. And there's a lot of power in that. And then there's also epigenetics, which is a change to our gene. It's a slight modification that can take place. And this could be due to chemical influences like pollution, drugs we were given at any point in time. Um, it could be how we were treated, events that happened to us that could have negative impacts, but we could also have positive ones. Being nurtured well and having positive experiences that influence us. So they can go both ways, those changes. And the things with genes is that even with epigenetic genes, is that they can be turned on or off. Like they talk about the Alzheimer's gene. It can be influenced by our lifestyle. Now, we're never guaranteed anything because we don't know. We can only do our best. And so if I had an Alzheimer's gene, I would be paying attention to how I eat, making sure I get a lot of exercise in, puzzles, whatever it took to keep my brain engaged. We should be doing that anyway, but extra if I had that gene, because what do I want to do? Keep it from being turned on. So let's go into how emotions are like a recipe. Well, let's take that model of the world, and instead of it being a tall office building or a house, it's going to be a restaurant. And you are the restaurant, right? And you've got this room. It's filled with all of these experiences and how you label them. And it's when we construct our emotions using these recipes, meaning in this very second, I'm getting sensory input and the brain has to make meaning of it. And to make meaning of it, it's using our prior experience, all these recipes in our head. So think about that. I don't know exactly how many connections in our head, like there's trillions. So it's for fun, just say there's a trillion recipes that our brain could use. And you would think that that's a lot, but I'm going to tell you, if you're always going to certain emotions all the time, for instance, can you tell the difference between feeling great and feeling confident? There is a difference. If you're feeling great, that means you're feeling very good. It's just like one up from good. Whereas if you're feeling confident, you are very sure of something. And hopefully that something is you. And this is a part of what I am trying to do with this book and with the Emotion Chef is to get you to have confidence in your emotions, in how you feel, in that you are confident, in that you know how you feel. Perfect? Never. I don't think any of us could ever be perfect at knowing how we feel. But it's not about perfection. It's about getting better at something. And the more that you work on identifying how you feel, the better you know yourself and the more confidence you have in who you are, what you don't want. And that leads to better decisions. Wouldn't that be nice in life to have better decisions? And you know what? It takes making bad decisions to help you have better ones. But still, knowing how you feel about it is what is key. Not that they just happened, how you feel. That is what helps to build the beautiful architecture of your world that lives inside of you. That was fun. I hope you had fun. I was very, very excited about that. Next time on the show, I am going to be putting all of this together and kind of taking it from step one to the last step, which is why chapter 5 is called Your Meal is Served. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed today's episode. I also want to say I'm very, very close. Hopefully by the next episode, it will be live to a community that I'm creating. And I want it to be a very interactive, connected community. I've looked at several of the different options out there, and I just found a new one called Swarm 2. And I like it because I feel like I'll be able to have that kind of connection with it because it's a combination of having a feed like you're used to seeing. You can see on TikTok or Facebook, but it also has this video interactive capability where you and I could send each other videos and respond to them. It just makes it more personal for me. I like to look at people as they're saying things. You get a little bit more of a feeling about that person. And I think you would have a little bit more of a feeling about me if we were having a conversation via video messaging or audio. It's really cool. I mean, it's really, really cool. You can message via video, audio, or text. And that way there's something for everybody's comfort level. I'm also going to be creating a course for Yucky Yummy Savory Sweet, and it's going to be called Sensory Sync. Very fun. Very fun. I'm very excited. So droning on and on, I'm not going to do that now. I'm going to hang up. Say goodbye, Kim. Goodbye.